first stage landing. So while that countdown continues, let's take a closer look at the launch vehicle supporting today's mission. The Falcon 9 rocket there on your screen is a two-stage rocket designed for the reliable and safe transportation of satellites, cargo, and people. Starting from the very top of the rocket is the payload fairing. That fairing is a protective shell that shields the payload from aerodynamic heating until the vehicle is outside of the Earth's atmosphere. The shape of the fairing contributes to Falcon 9's overall efficiency, helping to reduce drag during flight. Once in space, those two fairing halves will separate and return to Earth, where they will be retrieved by a SpaceX recovery vessel to be refurbished and reused on future missions. And both halves of the fairing are flight-proven, with one side flying for its 6th time and the other for its 5th. Now, right below the fairing is Falcon 9's second stage, which features a single Merlin vacuum, and good call out there. The second stage features a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. And below the second stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage, and inside of that is where the MVAC engine is currently housed. And below that we have the first stage or booster, which very shortly will be fully loaded with about 1 million pounds of liquid oxygen and RP-1 rocket-grade kerosene. Now that first stage makes up the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle and has 9 Merlin M1D engines at the bottom, which generate more than 1.7 million pounds of thrust. And the booster supporting today's mission will be making its 4th flight today, after previously supporting the NROL 179 mission just last month, in addition to 2 Starlink missions. Now, about 2.5 minutes into flight, the first stage will separate and return to Earth, and today the booster is headed to SpaceX's drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed in the Pacific Ocean. So with just over 5 minutes to go, everything is on track for today's mission. Now, next up in the countdown, the transporter erector, or TE, will begin to retract away from Falcon 9. The TE is the large support structure next to the rocket.
It's setting for strong back retract.
And there's that call out getting ready for the TE strong back retract. So that TE is hinged at the base and connected to the launch mount beneath the first stage. First, we'll see the clamp arms around the second stage open. Then the TE will begin to pivot back, slowly swinging away from the vehicle. And it'll reach full recline at around the T-minus 2 minute and 50 second mark.
Strong back retract.
And there's that call out that strong back retract is starting. And very shortly, we should see those clamp arms beginning to open around the second stage. Now, those clamps help stabilize the second stage during fueling and prevent movement in high winds. Once they're open, the rocket will be fully freestanding at the top, but will still be held down at the base. And you can see those clamp arms opening around the second stage there on your screen. Now, you may hear the TE called the strongback, though the strongback is just one of the components of the transporter erector. The TE has 2 components, a strongback alongside Falcon 9 and a launch mount underneath. And that launch mount has the 4 hold downs that will release at the T-minus 0 mark. Now, the TE does a lot of heavy lifting as it rolls Falcon 9 out to the pad, raises it vertical, and stays connected to the rocket through the final seconds before launch. And you can see that strongback retracting away from the Falcon 9 rocket. It also provides fuel, power, telemetry, and command connections between ground systems and the vehicle. Now, propellant is loaded late in the count, and that's intentional. Colder propellants are denser, and denser propellants mean more performance out of the same tanks. And before any of that propellant flows, though, the plumbing and engines are chilled down, and that prevents thermal shock and boil off when the ultra-cold liquid starts moving. And you may hear that referred to as engine chill. Now, loading wraps...
Stage 1, LOX load complete.
And there's that call out that Stage 1 LOX loading is complete. Now, loading wraps in 2 steps. The first stage finishes around the T-minus 3 minute mark, as we just heard, and the second stage finishes about a minute later. The tanks are also pressurized using helium, and that helium is chilled too, so it stays compatible with the cryogenic plumbing. Now, during flight, that pressurization helps force propellant into the engines as the tanks empty. Now, looking forward into the count, at the T-minus 60 second mark, Falcon 9 will enter startup, and this will mean that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers will have taken over the launch countdown. And then just inside of T-minus 2 seconds, we'll light the M1D engines for liftoff. Payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is currently tracking no issues with the vehicle. Weather is still looking green and the range is ready to support our T0 of 1:32 p.m. Pacific time. So with that, we're proceeding into the final moments before liftoff.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
And there's that call out that Stage 2 LOX loading has completed. Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of RP1 and LOX. And coming up shortly, we should hear the call out for ground gas closeout starting.
Ground gas closeouts.
And there's that call out, and that refers to venting and closing out gaseous systems, such as topping off tanks and sealing vents to maintain pressure. And coming up in just a few moments at the T-minus 1 minute mark, we'll hear that call out that Falcon 9 is in startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there it is, Falcon 9 is now in startup. At this point, the autonomous flight computers have taken over the launch countdown, and stages 1 and 2 are pressurizing for launch. And we're just waiting